What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another StormCast, the world's best podcast. We're live on YouTube and X. Before we get into today's episode, I need to give a quick sound check to make sure we're sounding good. What's up, everybody? Sounding good, looking good. Glad to be back. I feel like I've been gone for a long time now. It's only been 2 weeks. Thinking I need to get back to my weekly episodes because, folks, when I tell you a lot has happened since the last episode, a lot has happened since the last episode, especially around the world. Okay, the world's constantly changing, and I feel like a million things have happened since the last podcast. Like, usually, when I was doing the podcast every week, there would be some weeks where not a lot has happened and there really wasn't much to talk about. But if you guys could see how many tabs open I have to talk about today, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous how many tabs I have open at the top of my computer. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? I feel like today's episode will be a lengthy one, so I think it's only right to get right into it. If you haven't already yet checked out the latest episode, however, of the StormCast, make sure you go do that. All right, episode 63. This is episode 64. But in the last episode, episode 63, we talked about the Fauci, how guilty he is, pretty much his last hearing. Okay, we talked about the Israel-U.S. military relations and the military merge. We dispelled some of those rumors and brought to light some facts on that. We talked all about how Drake is the world's biggest simp and how he is pricing a lot of guys out, making a lot of women's dreams, but in the meantime, also pricing a lot of men out, and we talked about the migrant crisis in Spain and a lot more. So go check that episode out. Really good episode. Today's episode will be even more fire. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. So how's everybody been doing, though? How's everybody been? I've been pretty solid myself, I must say. Quick little life update. I'm dropping the Odyssey full movie review that I did with my pops. We went and saw the Odyssey and gave a nice little detailed breakdown and review of that. And that'll be dropping on the YouTube channel tomorrow at 5 on Stormy and Friends on YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. Hit those that notification bell to get notified when that drops tomorrow. And yeah, I've been feeling really, really good lately. Feeling really strong in my workouts. I'm really locked in. This is the most locked in I've been in a while. And I'm looking to keep that momentum going, inshallah. And I've been giving up all my vices. God has really, I've been connecting with God, been talking to him. Like, hey, help me with my struggles. Help me with the things that no longer serve me, and take out the people and the things in my life that only hold me back. And he's been doing just that. And God is good all the time. So yeah, really locked in with my physical, my mental well-being, as well as my spiritual well-being. So feeling really good, feeling really strong. And we're just going to keep that momentum going into the end of the year and into next year. It's actually starting to cool down a little bit outside. The August weather, it's starting to cool down a little bit outside. It's actually kind of chilly outside. I even had to bring out my old headband that I wear during the winter. So, as much as I complained about how hot it was this summer, I'm gonna miss it. I always miss my warm weather when it hits the winner. I just can't take it. Honestly, I'm not a winner type of person. You know, definitely got some African heritage. I'm definitely, I should be in the sun at all times. So yeah, it's gonna be a cold winter. It's gonna be miserable, but we're just gonna keep it. We're gonna keep locked in, keep going. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into our StormCast sports update. All right, so not much going on in the NBA, so not much to talk about there. But there is a lot going on in the UFC. So let's give a little UFC update. Starting with UFC 330 results. Since I gave you my predictions 2 weeks ago, in the main event, Islam Makhachev retained his welterweight title over Ian Machado Gary, and it was a unanimous decision across the board, with Islam Makhachev taking the W. I called a round 4 submission, but he didn't quite get the finish. But I did call the winner right. I said that Islam Makhachev would win by submission in round 4. And honestly, the fight played out close to how I said it would. Makhachev got the early takedown, dropped Ian Gary with a head kick in round 2, which was really nice. That was textbook striking on display by Islam. And basically, he just controlled him on the mat for the better part of the 25 minutes. All 5 rounds, he pretty much was dominant, I would say. Showed great wrestling technique. Great jiu-jitsu was shown by both of them, I would say, honestly. But Ian Gary, he had a lot of heart, showed some real heart, tenacity, fight, some dog in him. And he's young. He's 28 years old. So I do foresee him in the future getting another shot at that belt, as long as he stays locked in. And so, yeah, Ian Gary, he rallied late with some kicks and even stuffed some of Islam's takedowns, but he never did enough to steal any rounds offensively. And here's the real story. Islam Makhachev now has 17 straight wins, breaking Anderson Silva's mark that stood for over a decade. Okay, so Islam Makhachev is firmly in the GOAT conversation at this point. But he now has the longest active win streak ever. So very impressive. A very, very impressive work. And what's the word? When you continue, just, he continues, fight after fight to get it done. Very impressive. And so here we have, let's see. So currently, you can say he's the world's greatest fighter, most consistent, obviously, with that longest active win streak ever. That's the word, consistency. That's what I was looking for. So let's dive just a little bit into what makes him the world's greatest fighter, shall we? He is healthier than 99% of people. And why is that? Well, his diet, okay? He eats local and organic chicken, beef, eggs, salmon, raw dairy, fruits, and vegetables. Prioritizes protein, carbohydrates, no processed sugar, and has supplements, electrolytes, vitamins, and creatine, protein powder. So he's got his diet locked in. All right, very important. If you want to optimize his, to become one of the greatest athletes ever, your diet has to be locked in. All right. Training. He trains 2 to 3 intense sessions a day. Morning cardio of strength workout, Afternoon, he does wrestling and sparring, and in the evenings, conditioning and recovery with weightlifting, and basic weightlifting maneuvers and heavy compound lifts in low to moderate rep ranges. These are phenomenal athletes, not power lifters, right? So they're not lifting to try to necessarily gain mass or size, but just they're training for athletic explosiveness and to be explosive in and out of their takedowns and on the mat. So I watched some of his UFC embedded training, and I will say he's a hard trainer. When he locks in, and that can be said for most UFC athletes, right? I always get really inspired when I watch them. After I watch them train, I always want to go. I feel like my training sessions get better because they inspire me, and and watching them, shows you that you can, in fact, push yourself beyond what you believe. Right. So his morning routine, prayer before anything, I think that's very important, right? Spiritual strength, very underrated. Electrolytes before coffee, okay? Endurance conditioning, running and doing sprints uphill, explosive calisthenics, compound movements, and core work, whole food breakfast. For recovery, movement sequences to restore joint health, professional body work, ice baths, and Russian banya multiple times a day. 7 to 8 hours of sleep minimum, right? It's got his sleep locked in as well. Recovery, very important. Studies fight footage in a quiet environment to maintain emotional control and mental clarity, right? Dialed in mentally as well, right? One of the most underrated aspects of fighting is your mental composure, right? Being able to slow down the fights in a very fast-paced environment, such as professional fighting. You need to be able to analyze minor details and movements at a very fast pace, but also be able to calculate strikes from your opponent. There's a lot that goes into the mental aspect and the mental training for these professional fighters, of course. So yeah, that is what makes Islam Makhachev so special. If you want to optimize yourself, I recommend you following some of his tactics. Okay. And also for the UFC 330 card, which was an amazing card, I must say. I really did enjoy it. For the co-main event, it was Mackenzie Dern versus Jillian Robertson. And what I'm showing you right now is my parlay that I made on Kalshi. As you see here, this was a bit of a weird parlay, like very different type of parlay. I put obviously the preseason's going on, so I had the Dallas Cowboys beating the Seahawks. We got that. I had Mackenzie Dern winning. I won that. Islam won. Locked that one in. And Jalen Turner beating Fernandez. Locked that in. And then I also had a crypto on the parlay. So I had Dogecoin going over the target price. I hit no for that. And altogether, threw in $77, and I got me roughly $227, right? So I had a nice little payout last Saturday. And this today, I will be watching some more UFC. There is some UFC fights on. Obviously, some lesser-known fighters today as we prepare and wait for UFC 331. But I'll probably make me a nice little parlay later when I sit down and at the end of the day when I get to kick back and watch the UFC later. So we'll see how I do on my next parlay. I'll share that with you guys in the next episode. But for the co-main event for UFC 330, it was Mackenzie Dern versus Jillian Robertson, and it was a really good display of wrestling and grappling for those two ladies. I called a decision win for Mackenzie Dern, and that's exactly what happened. Not just a decision, a dominant one, right? She controlled the fight on the ground almost the entire 25 minutes. Although they did go back and forth, I would say, like, especially towards the end, Jillian Robertson was trying to get her in some different positions and tried to, pull off some submissions, but couldn't quite lock them in all the way. So, yeah, she did threaten submissions some throughout the fight, but Mackenzie Dern nearly choked her Robertson out at the end of round 1, making it the first successful title defense in the books for Mackenzie Dern. And I must say, both ladies looked very good, very in shape. Their physiques looked amazing. They obviously took their training camp very seriously, right? They both performed at a very high level. So yeah, now Mackenzie Dern has now won 4 straight, and she's cementing herself as one of the best pound for pound women in the sport, right? So I predicted correctly 2 for 2 of the winners. Well, actually 3, as you see here on my parlay, 3 for 3 of the winners, and won $227 on a $77 parlay. So there you have it, folks. There's evidence. If you ever think I'm capped, I really do this, right? I am really like that. And, if you ever want to, make a parlay, make some money, I recommend you reach out to me, and I'll see what I can do for you, right? I'm all for spreading the wealth. So yeah, there's a lot going on in UFC. Coming up next, we've got UFC 331, September 19th in LA at Crypto.com Arena. UFC's first time back in LA since 2018. And I'll be giving you a report on that when we're closer to the fight date. So that's where we're at. Makhachev's chasing legend status. Mackenzie Dern building her own reign at strawweight. And we've got a loaded card in LA in a few weeks to look forward to. All right. Moving on to NFL. There's some stuff going on around the world of the NFL, a lot going on. So picking up where we left off, since we last talked, NFL players entering the college transfer portal. Have y'all heard of that? A bit wild that this is even allowed or even possible, but I guess, nothing is off limits in the world of sports. If it can happen, it will happen, and this is one of those situations. All right, we've got NFL players going back to college. All right. So as you see here, we'll let the Ball Boy podcast give a quick little breakdown on everything surrounding NFL players entering back into the college transfer portal. But before we do that, quick little shameless plug here. Go and follow me on Instagram at IcyMick. As you see here, just posted this 20 minutes ago. Going live for episode 64 of the StormCast. We also have a StormCast Instagram. Go and follow that as well. All right. Stay updated with the StormCast. Everything StormCast related on there. All right. So let's get into this.
Running back is transferring back to college. Yes, this man, TJ Harden, just entered the transfer portal tonight. The same man who literally recovered a fumble for the Seahawks this past weekend in their preseason opener. The guy that jumps on the ball right there, that's him. And not only that, but he had 2 carries in the game as well. And I'm not done yet. He was also a member of the Browns earlier this offseason, so he's been on 2 NFL teams. And now he is in the college football transfer portal. And by the way, if you want more stories like this that the national media...
Insane work. Shout out to him for giving us a quick little breakdown on that. What do y'all think about that, man? Is that fair? Right? Like, honestly, like, should that even be allowed for these? I mean, they're obviously older, way older than the kids that they'll be playing in college. Should they be allowed to go back to college and play these freaking 20-year-olds, right? Some of them even 18, 19, 17-year-olds, grown men playing these teenagers. So here we have the first player currently on an NFL roster to enter the college transfer portal. Browns tight end and former Ole Miss tight end Daquan Wright has entered the transfer portal. All right. So, I guess, they couldn't make a spot on the team. So, I guess they decide to go back to college and figure it out, give themselves another shot. And, I'm not mad at them, for, trying to give themselves, extend their time. But it's not right. It don't seem right to me. Right? I feel like once you leave college, you should not be able to go back and play once you enter the NFL. Right? That doesn't make much sense. But either way, as far as the preseason goes, a lot going on. Right now, we have rookie standouts through week 1 of the preseason. Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall pick, went to my Raiders earlier this year in the 2026 NFL draft. He's looking the part in his first couple debut games, looking accurate and decisive. Right? My Raiders also have a good backup in Mike Washington Jr. He's also looking explosively fast and physical. So my Raiders, watch out. A lot of haters out there on the Raiders, a lot of people saying we're not going to do anything. I don't know. We were really bad last year, and that's partly due to because we had a quarterback who was throwing pick after pick and an offensive line that couldn't block, right? So we got rid of Geno Smith. We upgraded our O-line. We added some firepower to our offense. We still got Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, as well as think about his name from Minnesota, the receiver. It'll come back to me. But we got some good pickups, right? We got some defensive pickups as well. So my Raiders looking dangerous, all right? Other standouts from the preseason so far, Rams rookie quarterback Ty Simpson, also impressed in extended action. On the receiver side, Ravens rookie Jacoby Lane has been the buzz of the entire preseason. Veteran reporters are saying they've never seen a rookie dominate camp like this, and he's already scoring touchdowns in game action. Right? 49ers rookie Deshaun Stribling has been torching starting secondaries as well, which matters even more now that Ricky Parcells done for the year. And I will say the 49ers are looking a little bit scary too, with Brock Purdy coming back from injury. If they can keep everyone healthy, defense is usually pretty consistently good year after year for the 49ers. Of course they have Christian McCaffrey if he stays healthy. The young rookie Deshaun Stribling looking good. They just picked up Deebo Samuel. They got Mike Evans. So This is going to be an interesting year. And Steelers rookie quarterback Drew Aller's been arguably the best rookie quarterback in the league so far, tossing multiple touchdowns and adding a rushing score in his debut for the Steelers. All right. So with that being said, we all know I love fantasy football. All right. It is fantasy football season. So excited. I've officially locked in 12 $50 buy-in leagues on fantasy, on Yahoo Fantasy. And I'm looking to add 4 or 5 more teams before the season kicks off. So I'm not done yet. I still got some more drafting to do. My drafts have been going well. I like where my rosters are stacking up. On top of that, I'm the commissioner of an ESPN buy-in league with some of my friends and some of my friends of friends, right? So that league has 12 teams. So there's 12 of us. We're all throwing in $50 a person. So that's a $600 pot. We draft September 4th. I believe we're doing first place gets $400, second place gets $125, and third place gets $75. But we all know, just as last year, I'm gonna get first place, right? I took first place last year, although last year it was an 8-team league with the boys, right? I just know I can win it again, but I will admit bumping it up to 12 teams does change things up a bit. More bodies means less talent to go around, means deeper rosters, and it's easier to get exposed, having less talent on your team. So there's a lot less room for error on draft day. But I'm going in with the target on my back since I'm the defending champ. But I like my chance of running it back. So that's where I'm heading into the season, grinding Yahoo drafts, defending my title in the big ESPN league with the boys, and building out my portfolio before week 1 gets here, right? I'll give you guys updates and roster previews on my teams closer to week 1. All right. So now let's shift gears a bit. This is where things are going to get a bit spicy. All right. A lot has been going on in the news. A lot been going on around the world. And we have mRNA cancer vaccine is now in its late stage trials. All right. So the Merck Moderna personalized mRNA cancer vaccine just succeeded a late stage trial for the first time in history. And if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you know how skeptical, I am, how I immediately throw on my tinfoil hat when I hear anything about vaccines, because we all know that what happened the last time they rolled out a mass vaccine. And Moderna, the same company that made the COVID-19 vaccine, well, now they're, rolling out a cancer vaccine, right? So automatically I'm skeptical and not considering it at all, right? And, you listening out there, you take these things at your own risk. We do know that the last vaccine they rolled out is now giving people myocarditis or inflammation of the heart, right? People dropping dead from side effects of the last vaccine. So now we have a new one, but this one specialized for cancer, right? So this vaccine was tested in roughly 1,100 patients with high-risk melanoma, whose tumors had already been surgically removed. Each patient received a treatment designed specifically around the mutations found in their own cancer. Doctors sequence samples from the patient's tumor and blood to find mutations unique to their cancer. All AI, rather. So, got AI now involved in, modern medicine, which could be a very good thing, if done right, correctly. I feel as though it could be, but that's another thing that raises red flags to a lot of people out there as well. Either way, AI then analyzes those mutations and predicts up to 34 cancer targets most likely to trigger a strong immune response. Okay. Those selected targets are encoded into a personalized mRNA vaccine made specifically for that patient. The vaccine trains the immune system to recognize those cancer-specific targets and attack cells carrying them if the cancer returns. Patients received the personalized vaccine together with Merck's Keytruda and were compared with patients who received Keytruda alone. The combination was better at stopping the cancer from coming back or spreading to other parts of the body. Okay. So this is the first time a personalized mRNA cancer vaccine has succeeded in a phase 3 trial. Phase 3 is the last major trial stage before a treatment can be submitted for approval. So Moderna's stock surged over 110% after announcing the first ever positive phase 3 results for a personalized cancer vaccine. All right. And that is everything for the mRNA cancer vaccine currently in the works. Almost passing multiple phases and it works. I'm interested to see what some of these comments saying, and also let me know your thoughts down below on whether you're willing to take this vaccine if proven, obviously if proven that it will work. It seems like it could be something that, changes a lot of lives and is, one of those Nobel Peace Prize, winning discoveries, right? If we can cure cancer with a vaccine. But let's read some of these comments. This person says, just here to dilute the conspiracy comments and add the science is pretty cool. Okay. This person, I don't believe in vaccines, but I'll complain about wait times at the hospital. Okay. Being sarcastic. This person, this is exciting. I have been reading medical journals for the past 2 years, which basically say that the way to cure cancer is an individualized approach tailored to each person's DNA. This is the beginning of that becoming mainstream. It can't be overstated how much potential this has. Okay, so seems as though we've gotten all positive, comments so far. I wasn't expecting that. I was definitely expecting more skeptics, although I'm sure many are. So let's see if we can find one. Okay, and we do, right away. This person says, oh yeah, totally wonderful. Super trustworthy group of folks behind the COVID vaccine, right? So that's what I said. That's literally what I said. These are the same people that make the COVID vaccine. We know how, bad, how terrible that was for a lot of people. And, we're just trusting them, trusting them again. Excuse me. This rainy weather got me, feeling like I need to take a nap. No, we're going to power through though. We're going to power through. All right. So next up in StormCast news, we have flock cameras. You're being watched, folks. All right. Trump says flock cameras, however, have pros and cons, and he'll have an opinion on them after more research is done. All right. So let's listen to Top G Trump. Let's see what he has to say. All right. Top T.
license plate scanners that are going up across the country. They're called flock cameras. People are worried that the police might misuse them. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
What's your stance?
Well, it's being studied right now. You know, you have pros and cons, right? It's being studied right now. We'll have an answer sort of as to our views on it over the next couple of weeks.
These license plate scanners that are going up across.
Very, borderline answer. Didn't really say too much into it. We'll figure out, the studies, obviously, what goes on. This person says, bro says that the cameras magically appeared and he found out about them on Twitter last week. Yeah, it is funny how he always he acts like he doesn't really know about. I mean, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's fucking, he's just an old man who doesn't even, he's out of it. We do see him falling asleep all the time in meetings and shit. And he's always, seeming like he's a step behind nowadays. Although, he was always making fun of Joe Biden for, being Sleepy Joe. He's now become Sleepy Trump. So funny how the tides have turned. Funny how that works. This person says he'll make his mind up when he's done spying on us. This person says, when you see folks comment, I'll give my opinion on this in a minute. Yeah, that's crazy. So I guess he doesn't have an opinion on it. He doesn't, whatever. As if he doesn't know what they are or something. So continuing on with the flock cameras, the flock cameras are there basically to what they're supposed to be intended for is to monitor traffic in case of things, suspects are, illegal activities on the highway. Then they can get your license plate number and get you in a database to where you can be tracked. They're supposed to just track vehicles basically, not actual people. But we all know what happens when you give the government power. You give them an inch, they take a mile, right? And usually when you give up your rights, you usually don't get them back. And so I feel like this is one of the situations where, it'll progressively become, it starts off as monitoring vehicles, and then we move to monitoring humans, tracking people's faces, and then tracking people's activities, so on and so forth, incrementally, becoming, taking more and more of your freedoms, right? And we're becoming more and more of a monitored society, right? It's only, we've talked about in previous episodes about the door cameras, right? You can track people throughout your neighborhood. Like AI is used to detect people in your neighborhood, with the cameras. But now we have these in public. And I think China and other countries do this as well, surveillance states. But you don't want to live in a surveillance state, right? Because then you're always being watched, right? And we all know these cell phones are always if you have an iPhone, you're being listened to, right? If you have an Alexa device, a Google Home in your home, you're always being listened to anyway, right? But now, they're just blatantly putting these big flock cameras up and spying on you in the middle of the street, watching you. So here we have a police officer, 24, fired for using flock cameras to spy on her ex by running his license plate 166 times, right? See, there you go. Now you have, the police abusing them, right? Where they were initially intended to, track, crime. Now you have these bad actors tracking, people that they shouldn't even be, that, don't need to be getting tracked, right? This chick right here, Ellie Anna Hammond of the Malden Police Department in South Carolina. Why is it always South Carolina, right? Why is it always where I live, right? It's always South Carolina, I feel like. I don't know if I'm noticing that because I live here, right? You know, it's kind of like one of those things, you know, like when I first got in a wheelchair, started using a wheelchair, I started noticing wheelchairs everywhere. You know, I don't know if it's one of those things, but as of lately, a lot of things have been popping off in South Carolina. Recently, Hayden Panettiere, rest in peace to her. She passed away in South Carolina due to an overdose. Right, I just feel like a lot happens in South Carolina recently. Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina senator, he died. He was a South Carolina representative. So just maybe I was just biased. Now I'm just noticing it more. Either way, this chick, Ellie Anna Hammond of the Malden Police Department in South Carolina, was terminated on August 3rd after department records showed she queried the same vehicle 166 times between March and July. She repeatedly entered false justifications such as warrant check, traffic infraction, and welfare check to conceal the personal nature of the searches. Hired in June 2024 for uniform patrol, Hammond faced no criminal charges in connection with the misconduct. So she didn't even get in trouble for this, folks. So basically, if you have a loved one or someone who's a police officer, they very well could be tracking you right now, or whenever you're driving, to see where you're going and see if especially if you're, I would say, like if you're a man who has a wife who's a police officer, or a woman who has a husband who's a police officer, count your, it's probably not safe to be out here, driving your main vehicle to go drive to your your sneaky link's house, right? Because you're gonna get caught more than likely, right? So this person says, a new officer every day. Cops need to learn to let their exes go. Yeah. This person says, can't find missing children, by the way. Yeah. This person, she couldn't go her ex for at least 166 more times, huh? Okay. It's not very good English. All right. More. Here we have another police officer arrested after reportedly using flock cameras to track his ex-wife, 717 times. They have the exact number, right? Christopher Goodson, a 31-year-old Haines City Police Department officer, was arrested on August 11, 2026, after telling the supervisor the day before that he had made multiple flock database searches of his estranged wife's license plate. The admission came after she texted him that the Washington Post had contacted her about his alleged misuse of the system. He claimed the searches were only to check on his children's location while they were with her. Really? Investigators found he had queried her vehicle 717 times between September 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2026, both on and off duty using department-issued devices, and often entered false reasons such as criminal motor vehicle offense. He was charged with official misconduct and offenses against users of computers and electronic devices, placed on paid administrative leave, and has indicated he plans to resign. Right. This person says cops are making them flock cameras look bad. This guy, who thought these cameras were a good idea? I'm still driving unregistered. Fuck him. All right. That guy does not care. And what do you have it? We have more. All right. 39 officers caught stalking their exes using flock cameras around the U.S. My God, ring the alarm, right? 39 officers stalking just to stalk their exes. These cops and their exes, I mean, come on. Let's see. Officer Kareem Lynch used flock cameras to track a coworker. Officer Christopher Goodson used flock cameras 770 times to stalk his ex-wife. We just read about him. Officer Mark Nichols used flock cameras 46 times on his domestic partner. All right. These cops are the jealous types, apparently, right? I hear a lot about never get with the cop. They're some of the most abusive people. Well, you're seeing they're definitely living up to that here. Officer Lamar Roman used Flock to track down a woman he met on a TV show. All right. Officer Elizabeth Snowman used Flock cameras to track boyfriend's ex-wife. Oh, she's crazy. Look at her. She's a wild one. All right. Look at the location of the incidents. Look, mostly, I would say most of them over here in South Carolina, Georgia area, right? I guess this is the Jealous Belt, right? The Bible Belt, the Jealous Belt. Got a couple up here in the Wisconsin, Michigan area. But mostly down here in the South, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina area. All right, so there you have it, folks. You're being watched. All right. Oh, yeah, yet more. All right, Flock cameras are being blinded with expanding foam in South Carolina as surveillance backlash grows. All right, in Irmo, South Carolina, which is roughly, I would say, 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at most from where I am. A pair of automated license plate readers manufactured by surveillance technology firm Flock Safety were recently disabled after unknown individuals covered their lenses with expanding spray foam sealant. The targeted vandalism occurred in a community where 11 Flock cameras are currently active, just weeks after town council officials approved an expansion contract worth over $400,000 to install 22 additional cameras throughout local intersections. All right. So, the police departments are emphasizing that these devices and their databases serve as an indispensable tool for tracking stolen vehicles and investigating crimes. That's what they're meant for. However, the rapid proliferation of automated readers has triggered a significant pushback from privacy advocates and community members. And we know why. It's because people can, use these devices for nefarious reasons other than what they're intended for. All right. Here we have this Virginia man accused of destroying 13 AI-powered Flock cameras pleads not guilty, claiming they violate his rights. Okay, let's see. So here we have him right here. Got you on camera too. I'm in the pole. That electric screwdriver. Okay. All right, he knew what he was doing. Got it. Successful deflocking, you could say. All right. So Flock's so this case amid a much larger debate over Flock's network is used, right? Privacy advocates, including the ACLU, have raised concerns that interconnected license plate readers can create detailed records of where vehicles travel and allow law enforcement agencies to search large databases of location data. Supporters are saying the technology helps police investigate crimes and locate wanted vehicles, while critics argue the scale of the network raises serious questions about surveillance warrants and how long innocent people's location data should be stored. All right, let's check these comments out. This person says, remember guys, 50 cops have been found using Flock to stalk women. All right. Yeah, we just read in the last little article how many cops are using this for nefarious reasons. This person says, didn't the Supreme Court rule it unconstitutional? Yeah, my thing is, who voted this in, right? This is, something that you would think, Americans would be firmly against, right? Yeah, who voted this in? That's a good question. But either way, let's move on. We have more news. We've got a lot of news, folks. A lot going on. All right, so we have a Karmelo Anthony Austin Metcalf case update. All right, we all remember the Karmelo Anthony Metcalf situation out there in Texas, right? Where young Karmelo Anthony chose to bring a knife to a track meet and stab the young Austin Metcalf, killing him, right, with a pocket knife, and being found guilty of doing so. So last time we left off with this case, Karmelo Anthony was trying to, I believe, appeal, right? So apparently he wins a huge legal victory as judge gets removed from the case over appearance of bias. Okay. So here's his team of lawyers here, and here's the judge, right? So he's got a hefty team of lawyers, he did raise, an astronomical amount, at least over $500,000, I believe, for his case, right? A lot of people were in support of him. Although I think my position, I believe I said that I probably would have found him guilty, based on the fact that he brought a weapon to a high school track meet, right? No need for that. And was, pretty much in an opponent's tent, and was asked to leave and didn't. So it didn't have to go that far. The situation could have been de-escalated easily, but obviously it went, overboard completely, and it became one of the nation's biggest media, situations in quite some time for this year anyway. The media definitely ate this one up. But let's see what else. How did he win a legal victory? So he got the judge removed. All right, let's see. Get some volume here. What's next? Let's find out what's next. So the 19-year-old Karmelo Anthony, convicted in June 2026 of deleting Austin Metcalf at a Texas track meet, and sentenced to 35 years, scored a key procedural win on August 19th when senior judge Sid Harrell ordered trial judge John Roach Jr. removed from all remaining post-conviction proceedings, right? Roach's post-verdict TV comments on WFAA affirming the jury got it right, calling Anthony a nice young man and defending the trial's fairness in his own rulings. Created an appearance of bias, even though no actual bias was found. By publicly declaring the verdict correct, the judge appeared to have already decided the very issue raised in Anthony's motion for a new trial, making it look as if he could no longer evaluate the request fairly. So a new judge will now handle the motion, with a hearing scheduled for the next day, which is August 20th, which would have been Thursday. So the motion cites issues including restricted courtroom access, problems surrounding Anthony's decision not to testify, and jury selection, right? Jury selection was a big, a thing that people brought up, that there wasn't enough, Black people as jurors. That was one of their things that they, stated was unfair, which, granted, makes sense. I believe there was some brown skinned people in there, maybe Middle Eastern and like Muslim, Islamic, or Middle Eastern basically. So, but no like Black people, which is, people are gonna find fault wherever they can. So that's, one of the points they brought up for it being unfair. So fair enough. Either way, continuing with the Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case. Breaking new evidence reveals Karmelo Anthony texted about stabbing someone. Austin Metcalf was arrested for spray painting "Kill All Blacks" and had a history of bullying in school. All right. So it's looking like neither of these young men were angels, right? A lot of evidence coming out showing that both of them have a bit of, animosity in their hearts, shall we say, right? With Karmelo Anthony, premeditating a stabbing, and then, Mr. Metcalf over here, spray painting "Kill All Blacks," right? So definitely some hatred going on between these two and these young men. So a lot of people have asked why Karmelo Anthony took a knife to a track meet. Those reasons were captured in our 404 motion. The morning of the stabbing, his ex-girlfriend goes to an assistant principal saying she broke up with Karmelo and he was stalking her. Anthony text message saying, "I'm low key on the verge." Right, that's Gen Z text format right there. "I'm on the verge." And that was the morning before stabbing, and emphasized it. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another, when I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. All right. And then we have more. So here's some of the background report on Austin Metcalf that is being discussed in court during his hearing over a motion for a new trial. It's more than 20 pages, but here are some of the notable incidents. Austin Metcalf and his brother Hunter were once caught spray painting graffiti, including "Kill All Blacks" and "Hail Hitler." All right. Along with the N-word, and were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation. All right. That's something the media didn't bring up before. Who knew about that? Right. We didn't know that Austin Metcalf was a apparent racist. All right. That was never brought up before. Neither was the fact that Austin Metcalf premeditated this, right? I didn't know that either, all right, when we covered this originally, all right? So we did some dumb stuff and we did some vandalism. Which is what the Metcalf brothers reportedly told authorities. There are several documented instances of Austin using racial slurs in school. And in 2023, Austin was accused of bullying a black student in class. All right. In 2018, while still in elementary school, Austin and his brother were accused of bullying and assaulting a female, which led to his arrest. During an argument in 2024 with another female student, Austin allegedly knocked her to the ground and punched her in the stomach. He was also kicked out of a football game and texted someone later, "I was about to beat the blank out of those kids" at a previous track meet. When another student alerted Austin that someone not on their team, quote, "behind our bench was talking wild," Austin reportedly replied, "Kill that motherfucker. Kill that motherfucker." All right. Kill him. All right. Crazy work. He was also kicked out of a football game and texted someone later, "I was about to beat the blank out of those kids" at a previous track meet. Okay, we read that. During 2023 to 2024 school year, he received in-school suspension twice, ISS. I know all too well about ISS. Back in my day, I would say I was a bit of a fighter myself. I got into a couple of fights in school, raised them. You know, I wouldn't consider myself an angel child growing up at all. I got my fair share of trouble, and I did receive ISS, a lot. I was a bit of a troublemaker, admittedly. Never stabbed anyone though, and I never pushed any woman to the ground and punched them to the stomach. I will say that it's usually just one-on-one fights, and just creating havoc in classrooms, being disruptive and stuff like that. That was more of my thing personally. But either way, school disciplinary records from April 2022 to May 2024 revealed that he reportedly called a teacher the B word, okay, or used profanity. He told a school official that he couldn't control it and wasn't aware that it was coming out of his mouth. Oh, he wasn't aware that he was calling the teacher the B word. Okay. All right. In 2024, on at least 5 occasions, Austin saw a counselor regarding his anger and rage during a football game. In 2021, he got banned from attending basketball games for a season after yelling profanity at a player. Metcalf also got suspended after he and another student were talking about bringing a gun to school the following day. All right. So, all right, with the looks of it, folks, neither of these kids were angels. All right. Someone said Venom versus Carnage. So that doesn't mean, anybody should have died. Anybody's life should have been taken, Very young. They still had a lot of life to live. A lot of growing up to do, a lot of maturing to do, obviously. But this does give us a little bit of background and understanding of these two individuals, and the fact that they were in the same area at the same time, and one of them had a knife. Now it makes sense how something like this could have happened, right? As this person says, Venom versus Carnage. What happens when you get 2 supervillains together, right? Someone's gonna get hurt. They're gonna destroy the city, right? And they're gonna, and do something bad, right? Something bad's gonna happen, right? So this person says every year there is a case that starts a race war. Yeah, I mean, they do it on purpose, right? It's to keep us divided. They keep us divided with race, with politics. Left, right, Democrat, Republican. That's one way. There's a million ways. When I say they, I mean, the elite, mostly Zionist, government, politic officials that run our government, right? The United States of Israel. But this person says, regardless of who Austin Metcalf was as a person, you're not allowed to just premeditate a murder and kill someone. All right. So yeah, now we have more. This doesn't look too good either. Karmelo Anthony fantasized about stabbing someone before murdering Austin Metcalf. Yeah, we know about that. I haven't seen this picture. Is that a AK without the stock on the end? All right, so here's the knife that he used. Karmelo used to kill Metcalf, to stab him to death. All right, so we have someone talking. Let's actually refresh this, pause it, and give it some volume, shall we? All right, and we know this because Anthony's girlfriend exposed these text messages to the vice principal the very morning that Austin Metcalf was stabbed by Karmelo. All right, and we also know that Karmelo had been stalking her and threatening her as well. All right, so not an angel by any means, either of these young men. All right, and we'll dig deeper into that. So now we know how much of a savage possibly Karmelo Anthony was. You know, how much havoc he was creating, and what he was up to prior to this case. But now let's get into a little bit of Austin, right? Neither one of these young men, angels by any circumstance. So here we have Karmelo Anthony hearing reveals Austin Metcalf had 20 plus pages of behavioral records, including racist graffiti, slurs, and assault allegations. All right, assault allegations. Just typical brother things, no big deal, right? Hell Hitler, kill all blacks, just typical, you know. So it seems like a lot of Mr. Metcalf is creating a lot of havoc at these sporting events, right? And it seemed to be his downfall, right? That's where he would eventually end up getting stabbed at one of these track meets where he was creating this havoc. I don't know why I find that so funny. He couldn't control it. He couldn't control calling the teacher the B word. I mean, I understand, you know, when you're young, got a lot of anger in you, you know, a lot of testosterone building up, a lot of, you know, going through puberty, you know, life is changing. Not easy growing up in this world, you know, when the world's against you, growing up as a man, you know, we live hard lives, but, you know, you got to learn to control that anger and those emotions, right? You got to learn to be more stoic, more calm. I think around like eighth, ninth grade, I learned to tame my emotions a bit. I learned to think before I talk and I speak, and my actions don't let my emotions control me. And you can argue this is around the age where they were probably, starting to, have given it. If he would have lived a couple more years, he probably would have, started to, develop more into a man and become more rational and less emotional. Same goes for Karmelo Anthony. You learn to control yourself, your behaviors, and your actions better. But no, there's no excuses though. No, I don't. No excuses for them and their actions, right? All right. So a lot unwrapping in the Karmelo Anthony case, and when more comes out, the Karmelo Anthony, Austin, and Metcalf case, I will be the first one here to update you on that. All right. So stay tuned for future updates on that. Let's move on to our next news piece, shall we? We had a Michigan shooting. Did y'all hear about this? A shooting in Michigan, leaving 5 people, plus the suspect, dead following a large-scale search. So this was Friday, August 14th, 2026. A shooting spree across 3 locations in Lake Township, Missaukee County, left 5 people dead, plus the suspect, Chad Hickman, age 39, who was also found dead around 11. Who was also found dead, rather. All right, so around 11:40 a.m., Michigan State Police responded to a home on South LaChance Road where 3 people were found dead and a 13-year-old girl was critically wounded despite her being shot 4 times. She called 911 herself and identified Hickman as the shooter, and her family called her a hero. Wow. So if it wasn't for this girl, strong young girl, who knows how long they could have been in that house dead without, anyone knowing, right? So shout out to her. I hope she's still doing okay. I hope she made it out. Okay. Obviously, they say she survived, but she called 911 and identified Hickman, and so they're calling her a hero. So Hickman fled before the troopers arrived, prompting a manhunt during which investigators discovered a 4th victim dead at a second residence. His vehicle was later found near Whitlock Lake, where police located Hickman dead, along with a 5th victim in a wooded area. The victims' names have not been officially released, though a relative identified his daughter Amanda and 2 grandchildren among those killed. All right, rest in peace to those individuals. Lieutenant Ashley Miller called the situation, quote, heartbreaking for the community, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer said her, quote, thoughts are with the victims, their families, and the Missaukee community. All right. So prayers out to Michigan. This world is a very twisted world, a lot of dark things going on, every day. And it's always sad when a mass casualty like this happens. And there's no need for this type of violence. All right. But it's a good testament to show you that, evil is well and alive. And as long as evil is alive, there's going to be bad people. But if there's evil out there, that means the opposite is true, which means that there is goodness out there, right? And there is You know, if there's the devil, then God is out there as well. So stay prayed up, keep your loved ones near, you know, and do your best to stay out of these dark situations. Keep your loved ones safe, protect them, you know, provide for them, and, you know, do your best to stay out of these situations, right? As best as you can. Obviously, a lot of these situations are very random. You know, you can't control it. You could just be out one day and boom, someone decides to shoot something up or something crazy decides to happen. A bomb goes off, you know, something wild. You know, you just can't stay completely safe in this world these days. Like I said, just stay prayed up and, you know, protect yourself and your loved ones. So we'll move on from this dark case. Prayers out to those afflicted by this. Let's move on to the Luigi Mangione case. All right. So we have a Luigi Mangione case update. You know, the guy who killed and stalked the CEO of United Healthcare, the CEO Brian Thompson. Remember when he murdered him in broad daylight? That Luigi Mangione. Well, yeah, he officially pled guilty to federal stalking charges in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So here you have Brian Thompson, Luigi, and here you have the surveillance footage showing Luigi assassinating Brian Thompson in broad daylight using a homemade gun, I believe it was. I believe he was it like a 3D printed gun, something like that. I believe he made it himself. Either way, let's hear what the news has to say about this case, right? Hold on one second. Can y'all hear me? Mic check, mic check, mic check. Can y'all hear that? Y'all can hear me, but can y'all hear this? Hold on. Can you hear me, but can you hear this? I'm not hearing that on the footage. I wonder why. Can you hear me, but hold on. This? I wonder why. Okay. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything. That's really weird. I don't know if y'all can hear. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear it. Drop a 2 if you can't. I'm not hearing it on my feedback. So hear it. Drop a 2 if you can. I'm not hearing it on my feedback. So hear it. Drop a 2 if you can. I'm not hearing it on my feedback. So hear it. Drop a 2 if you can. I don't think I can hear this game. Well then, so basically, folks, I don't know if it's just this video. Let me see. Could y'all hear the other footage? pushed anyone. So that's 5 people. I didn't play anything else. So for some reason, y'all can't hear this. But basically, we'll give a quick rundown on it. Luigi Mangione basically found guilty, all right, pled guilty, and now we are. Yeah, we'll just read it. Let's start from the top. So Luigi Mangione officially pleads guilty to federal stalking charges in the killing of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in a Manhattan federal courtroom on Friday. The 28-year-old admitted to, so this was last week. The 28-year-old admitted to the December 4th, 2024 shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a Midtown hotel, telling the judge, "I shot Mr. Thompson in Manhattan and he died." He described preparing by using a 3D printer. Okay, so I was right. Yeah, he 3D printed a gun equipped with a silencer and posing as an investor to obtain details about the company's conference, citing years of severe pain from a broken back and frustration navigating the health insurance system as his motivation. Okay. So Mangione pleaded guilty to 2 stalking charges resulting in death without a plea deal. Prosecutors intend to seek a life sentence at his December 18th sentencing hearing, while his lawyers have moved to dismiss parallel state murder charges on double jeopardy grounds. Okay, so this person says guilty for federal stalking charges, 5 to 10 years max. Smart man. This guy is literally the reason why so many people in the United Health got their rates lowered. It took some random civilian offering a corporation CEO for them to listen to their customers. Okay, interesting. So there is a lot of support, right? I see a lot of support for Luigi Mangione. You know, a lot of people see him as a hero. A lot of people say he did the right thing, although, you know, it's never, in my opinion, never the right thing to, you know, you never want to say he off someone. You know, it's never a good thing. Obviously, killing someone, there always could be a better way, possibly, right, to handle things. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Right? I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but sometimes, in order to get the ball rolling, you know, drastic measures must be taken. So here we have him being escorted out of the courtroom. Looks like a, you know, I don't know who he's looking at like that, but that's not a. I don't know if it hurts. I don't know if that cop's got a. Looks like that cop's got a nice firm grip on his neck. I don't know if that's what that. If he's screeching from the pain or something, but yeah. So Mangione entered the plea without an agreement with federal prosecutors. Each charge carries a maximum sentence of life in prison, though prosecutors recommended a sentence of between 292 and 365 months, or approximately 24 to 30 years. The recommendation is not binding on the judge, who scheduled sentencing for December 18th. A federal judge dismissed separate murder and firearms charges in January, eliminating the possibility of the death penalty. Mangione still faces a New York State trial on second-degree murder, weapons, and forgery charges with a jury selection scheduled to begin September 8th. His attorneys are expected to seek dismissal of the state murder charge, right, under New York's double jeopardy protections, though prosecutors have said they will oppose the effort. So I'm interested to see what some of these comments are saying. Y'all let me know. Is it free Luigi, or is it keep him locked up? Is it free Luigi till it's backwards? Y'all let me know. So this person says national hero, and that comment got 31,000 likes. My goodness. This person says it's really disturbing how this man is being heralded as a hero. He murdered someone in cold blood. How are we not collectively realizing the gravity of that? Okay, so that guy only got 352 likes though, so, and 570 comments. I'm sure most of the comments are, yes, this guy said go eat a pizza. See, a lot of people are in support of Luigi because at least he was standing up for something, right? The healthcare system in America is absolutely corrupt, without a doubt. I'll go on record and say that, right? There's a lot of flaws in the healthcare system in the United States, right? And he felt as though something needed to be done about it, and that's what he did. He took the life of that CEO, and apparently changes were made, right? A lot of rates went down for a lot of individuals, apparently. So, I'm sure the amount of love letters and hybristophilia that an attraction that he's gotten is absolutely ridiculous. He doesn't have to worry about being lonely in jail. He will definitely always have a love letter coming in for him. I guarantee you that. Right? We all know women love a murderer, someone capable of violence. Right? It's been detailed and documented in multiple cases, and that's actually something we're going to be talking a little bit more about later on in this podcast. All right, so stay tuned for that. But here's some more pictures of Luigi in court. All right, I'm not gonna lie, that fit is kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie. The vest with the with the polo sweater over the high. I don't know. He's swagged out. Corey, I don't know. Do they give you an outfit, or can you pick an outfit when you go to court when you're in jail? I don't know how that works. But here you have him being escorted by what looks like to be that FBI or Homeland Security, being escorted like he killed the president, right? Although we know this is a high a high case. A lot of people know about this. A very national, very, very national case. High, I want to say high value, high. I can't think of the words today. I am brain fog. But either way, here we have him in court. You could say a high value case. That makes sense, right? Smiling at the camera here, being escorted. And they look. I mean, these pictures are kind of iconic, if you ask me. I mean, not saying I agree with the dude or not, right? My position on this is simply to report the case, but they make him out to be iconic, like the pictures they take, the angles, how they display him. It seems like a lot of people are in support of him, for whatever reason that they are in support of him for. So with that being said, folks, we are going to move on to our next topic, which is, and we'll only touch on this a little bit, right? Because we've been covering this in the past couple episodes, but it seems like every week something different comes out, or something pops up on this. So this is the Andrew and Tristan Tate case update for today. If this video was paused, I'm gonna give it some volume, and I'm gonna make sure y'all can hear this first. So I'm gonna test it. Let's see. Yeah, it isn't. I don't hear it. I don't know why. Here, let me turn my volume up on my computer. Let's see if y'all can hear it, and then I'll start the video over if y'all can. My bad, having some minor technical difficulties, guys. I do it live, right? I'm not in some fancy studio, so bear with me as I. y'all can't hear it. I don't know why it's not, the volume's not playing. I'm gonna have to get that sorted out after this pod. So it looks like the videos are not gonna be playing volume. So I'll just be pretty much explaining what's going on. So pretty much, folks, as far as Andrew and Tristan Tate goes down, as far as they're concerned, right? Recently they had a mass protest at their in front of their Miami prison where they're locked up. About 40, anywhere from 40 to 60 individuals showed up, protested, held signs, screamed, "Free the Tate brothers." People showed solidarity, mostly men. They're protesting, doing push-ups, because, Tristan and Andrew Tate are known for, helping men with self-improvement, fighting the Matrix or whatever, allegedly. Right. And, and I used to believe all of the, things that they said, as far as, self-improvement, how important discipline is, and, to focus on, being, becoming a better, stronger man, things like that, self-improvement basically. And, that resonated with me a lot, when I first discovered Andrew Tate and I saw him on the Aiden Ross, when he used to stream, when they used to do their streams. Those were, very monumental, made an impact on my life, right? It's when I decided to, lock in at a younger age, when I was going through a hard time too. I was transitioning from Texas to South Carolina. I was living with my aunt at the time, me and my mom, because we were waiting on our house to get built. And so I was kind of in a liminal phase, right? Transition between two points in my life. And so I was a bit lost. And then I saw some of Andrew's content, and, it kind of inspired me to, focus on my grind, to continue to, stay disciplined, work out, make money, and things of that nature. But recently, I feel like, they started to scam their fans a little bit, with the crypto pump coins. They started to, do a lot of grifting, a lot of, it seems like they were controlled a bit in ways, especially from, I don't know, Zionist, Israeli influence, possibly. He did say he had tech teams in Israel on the PBD podcast when he was talking. And I didn't like when he apologized, when he did his apology tour to, after he played the song, the Hail Hitler song in the club, when he was with Clavicular, he was with Myron Gaines, Fresh and Fit, Walter Weeks, Sneeko. I think Nick Fuentes was there, Justin Waller. Remember that stream? That was an iconic stream. But however, when they played that song in the club and they got mass criticism for playing it, by the Jewish community, they didn't like that a lot. Because, Miami has a huge Jewish population. And so, Sneeko got blamed for it. Andrew and Tristan Tate, they blamed Sneeko, which you don't do that to your boys, right? You either double down or you don't say anything, you don't say anything, right? You just shut your mouth. But, Andrew has a big mouth. He has to talk. He has to, boast, what's that the word? Boast. And so, it's oftentimes his downfall, right? That my pops used to say, that red piece of tongue in your meat, it's going to get you in trouble, right? And so that's what happens to Andrew. And, he makes some ridiculous tweets as well. So a lot of things, it just kind of made me realize that, the people you look up to a lot of times are not who they say they are. They deal with their own things, and it's never good to idolize people, right? It's just another example of why you should never idolize another man. Right? You form your own self-identity. You focus on that. You worry about that. You upgrade yourself. You don't chase women. You don't chase material possessions. You chase you know, optimization of your spirit and your body, and you know, and you grow closer with God, right? And you grow that connection, right, with your faith. But you know, Andrew, a lot of times he'll contradict a lot of the things he preaches, and for that, I kind of lost, you know, some respect for him. Although, you know, I don't want to see him locked up. Obviously, you know, free Tate. You know, he didn't do anything to me. He only helped me personally. I can only say good things to me. But what I've seen him done to other people, slime and snake other people, is kind of, you know, you wouldn't expect that from him, right? But it just goes to show you, you know, your idols, you know, they'll become your rivals eventually if you get big enough, right? So he'll, you know, who's to say he wouldn't do that to me, right? So that's how I think of it. Either way, that is all of our news topics today. But however, we do have some actual topics, right? So that is all of our news for today's StormCast. Let's get into some of the topics. All right, first thing up, there was a debate. All right, a big debate surrounding the Charlie Kirk case. All right, between Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson, two prominent social media personalities. And Candace is on the side. I'll give a little bit of a breakdown here. She's more so on the side that, you know, Israel and other parties, as well as those who were close to Charlie Kirk, including his wife, Erica Kirk, and his media company, basically TPUSA. They were all in conjunction and in coordination with the assassination of him, right? So she's under the belief that he wasn't killed and assassinated by Tyler Robinson, as the government narrative tries to spin to the normies, to the public, right? And we all know that, you know, Mossad and those closest to, those in connection with Israel have in the past, in coordination with our government as well, CIA and FBI, they are known for assassinating prominent figureheads, you know, and covering them up, you know, people like JFK, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you know, all of those have, you know, real conspiracies tied to them, and surrounded by Mossad influence and CIA influence, right? And others alike, you know, and other dark, shadowy groups, right? So either way, there was a debate surrounding the Charlie Kirk assassination between Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson. And I'll give my position on it. What I want to say is, to explain my full position on the Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson debate, because a lot of people, I mean, you may have probably already watched it. If not, I recommend you do so. It was, not really, you don't do so. It didn't really accomplish anything, in my opinion. But I think everything surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk, because I think the public got screwed basically by this conversation, and they deserved better from this debate, right? More answers should have been displayed, more evidence should have been talked about. Both of their positions should have been properly explained and accounted for, and more details definitely could have been brought to light surrounding his Charlie Kirk's assassination, especially to first-time viewers. You know, people unlike me, you know, I've been following up with the trial of Tyler Robinson, and I've been following up with this and keeping up to date with this whole situation since the very beginning, right? I believe the very first day it happened, I reported on it. I gave the government narrative, which was fed to us, because that's all we knew at the time, right? If you go back and watch that episode, and that's actually my most viewed podcast to date, too. I think it's almost got 1,000 views, and that's big for my podcast episodes, because a lot of people don't watch long form content like that. Either way, I'm gonna make the podcast anyway, because I enjoy doing this. I enjoy coming on here yapping about things that I find interesting. But either way, I've been following the Charlie Kirk assassination from the very beginning, and I did a report on it. And as more and more details have come out, I've started to realize and started to question the narrative. And I think you should too, right? I don't think you should take what they're trying to tell us at face value, because I do believe it's a lie, a lot of what they are telling the public. And a lot of people will agree with me, right? It's fishy. Everything about it is fishy. But we'll get into that. So in my opinion, the people lost and Israel won again, right, in this debate. I think this debate did almost nothing for the people who were first-time listeners, or who genuinely wanted to understand Candace's position versus Andrew Wilson's position. And the reason I'm reading this is because I wrote down my position and my take on this, so that I wouldn't forget, basically, when I was trying to explain it to you guys. So this is what I wrote down on this. So Patrick Bet-David, who was the narrator, and also the host of the PPD podcast, I believe he was a horrible narrator for this conversation, for a conversation this important, right? For a case that's so widely debated. It should have been narrated by someone who could have got a better debate out of them. I know Candace wanted it under specific environment. She wanted it at her house. She wanted $300,000 for the debate, right? Which is crazy that she got paid that for a debate. All right, a W for her. I will say she made a lot of money off of this, which is, a lot of people will say you shouldn't be making money and profiting off of your friend Charlie Kirk's death, but a lot of people are, I'd say. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not gonna pocket watch the woman. But what I will say is, instead of creating a structured debate where both sides could clearly present their evidence and have their strongest arguments challenged and then respond, Patrick Bet-David allowed it to become a free-form debate that was, in my opinion, total bullshit, okay? So I thought Andrew Wilson exposed himself as somebody who was unprepared and more interested in clout, money, and attacking Candace than actually getting to the truth, all right? Candace, in my opinion, won the debate because she speaks to the people, all right? She doesn't pretend she has every answer. She's asking questions about a complicated situation where, in my view, too much evidence has either been covered up, ignored, or quite literally paved over, all right? So there was also an issue of Candace reportedly receiving $300,000. I don't believe that money necessarily came directly from Andrew Wilson, though. Right? I believe it's possible that Turning Point USA funded the debate, and I think people should ask whether there was interest involved in putting Candace in that position and trying to damage her credibility because of what she has been saying about Charlie Kirk, Israel, Mossad, the CIA, Erica Kirk, and the circumstances surrounding his death. Now, everything I'm about to say is my allegation, right? Allegedly, right? So my interpretation of the situation, not me claiming that every part of this has been proven in the court of law. So this is what I got out of it. So I believe Charlie Kirk's assassination was a cover-up, and I believe it deserves to be investigated far beyond the official story. All right. We've seen government narratives questioned before with JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, 9/11, and other major events. right? So when people tell me I'm supposed to blindly accept the official explanation, government narrative, I'm not doing that, right? So I believe Tyler Robinson was a patsy. I do. I don't think he shot a 30-06 rifle from 130 or so yards out and made a small little pinprick on Charlie's neck. Right. I believe that if it was a 30-06, it would have blown his neck off. And there would have been blood everywhere, not just a little bit gushing from his neck onto his shirt. Right. So I don't believe the official explanation surrounding the shooting adequately explains what happened to Charlie's neck. One of them questions I raised, as I said, is how a 30-06 fired from approximately 120 yards could supposedly cause the injuries were being shown. All right. To me, the explanation being fed to the public doesn't make sense at all. Okay. So I believe the evidence points toward the possibility that a projectile was fired through Charlie's neck from somewhere other than the weapon attributed to Robinson. Right. Possibly the explosion, a projectile exploding from the lavalier mic under Charlie's shirt. When you slow down, when Charlie was shot, you see the mic, his shirt quite literally raise up, right? That's been shown. So I believe the microphone underneath Charlie's shirt is another piece of evidence. When you rewatch the assassination footage, I believe you can see the microphone explode underneath his shirt. My theory is that the microphone was detonated and that what happened to Charlie cannot simply be explained by the official shooting narrative, right? Doesn't make sense. A lot of people agree with me with that, right? It doesn't even seem like a wild farce or a conspiracy theory. It just, quite literally, if you open your eyes, right, and you're not stuck in the matrix, you'll agree with that point. So I also question the way Charlie was transported after being shot. Instead of being taken away in a normal ambulance, he was reportedly transported in a truck by his, quote, TPUSA members, right, and staff and bodyguards, right? Very fishy stuff. So I believe people should be asking why that happened and whether evidence from that vehicle could have been important, right? Apparently there's a picture that got leaked of a explosion, the exploding mic under Charlie's shirt in that vehicle, right? That's on the internet if you look. So I also believe the crime scene was paved over extremely quickly, right? To me, that's another enormous red flag. If you're investigating an assassination, why would you alter or pave over the crime scene before every possible piece of evidence has been completely preserved and examined, right? I also believe there are serious questions about Charlie's communications before his death. There was allegedly messages indicating that people were planning to kill him. Charlie wrote these texts. There were also claims that Charlie had been changing his position, his pro-Israel position, right? At first, he was a pro-Israel speaker, politician almost, advocate. And then eventually, towards the end of his life, he started to back those points, right? Take those points back when he started to get exposed to the truth, and he started to question Israel and and our support for them, which is what a lot of people have done since the assassination. It's kind of opened, it's been a great awakening. A lot of people have started to question government narratives, our support for Israel, and things of that nature. So this is an extremely important part of my argument, right? I believe Charlie had started taking back some of his previous pro-Israel positions. I believe he had begun speaking more critically about Israel and what happened and what was happening in Gaza, right? The genocide. He even said on the Patrick Bet David show, I believe that Israel is going to ethnically cleanse Gaza. It's on the internet, right? I'm not pulling this out of my ass, right? So, including the issue of ethnic cleansing, right? He discussed these subjects publicly, including on the Patrick Bet David podcast, the host of this debate. You know, the Candace Owens, Andrew Wilson debate. So I believe that change in position is extremely important when you're trying to understand possible motives, right? I also believe Israel, Mossad, and the CIA deserve to be investigated as potential parties involved in what happened, and that's not going to happen because they are the ones who do the investigating, right? So you can't investigate the investigators, right? So this is one big cover up. They're going to get away with it. Tyler Robinson, most likely, I assume, I'm only guessing here, but he's probably going to either get found guilty, or maybe get the death penalty. They're going to claim that they kill him and they're going to send him to Israel. And, he's a patsy, right? He's not going to. He definitely has a part in this, but he's definitely not the one who pulled the trigger. I believe there's even some of his bodyguard, signaling to another bodyguard to press a detonator, and then you see Charlie jerk back, and when he was the projectile goes through his neck, right? And also I believe if he was shot by 30-06, he would have blown straight back like that, not up, So I'm not saying that simply because I dislike somebody or because I hate Jews or Israel or any of that. I'm saying this because I believe there are enough circumstances surrounding Charlie's death, his changing political positions, his statements about Israel, and the alleged threats against him, that these organizations should not automatically be excluded from an investigation, right? So my theory is there could have been coordination with Israel, Mossad, and the CIA and other parties in the planning or execution of Charlie Kirk's assassination and the subsequent cover-up of that assassination. I also think Benjamin Netanyahu's behavior deserves scrutiny, right? Immediately after Charlie's death, Netanyahu went live and stated that he had no involvement and that Israel had no involvement. To me, the fact that he addressed that possibly so quickly is something I find suspicious and something I believe deserves to be examined rather than simply ignored, right? Because I know when something happens to one of something happens, right? I'm not going to go on the internet and say, hey, I had no involvement in it. It makes no sense. Of course I had no involvement with it, right? An innocent person doesn't need to plead his innocence, right? He's innocent, right? I didn't see any other foreign leader jump up on TV and say they had no involvement with the assassination attempt. It's very fishy, right? Very fishy behavior. So I also believe there are serious allegations surrounding Erica Kirk. One theory is that has circulated is that Erica was involved in a honeypot trap operation against Charlie before his death. I am presenting that as my theory, right? And others have that allegation and theory and have said the same thing. But I believe it deserves investigation alongside everything else rather than automatically being dismissed, right? So when I look at all of this together, all in all, the alleged threats against Charlie, his changing position towards Israel, his statements about Gaza, the alleged microphone explosion, the questions about the projectile and ballistics, Tyler Robinson potentially being a patsy, the transportation of Charlie in a truck, the alleged evidence in that vehicle, the rapid alteration of the crime scene, the allegations surrounding Eric Kirk, and the possible involvement of Israel, Mossad, and CIA. I don't believe the public should simply accept the official narrative and just move on. All right, so that's why I understand why Candace Owens is asking these questions as well, and many others out there. And that's why I think she won the debate. Although she didn't, it's not like she did, the craziest job explaining herself, or she didn't bring up as much evidence as I would have liked her to, or, she didn't really like slam the door on them. She won by simply, holding a position that doesn't seem like Fed slop, right? And it's okay to question the narrative, right? It's okay to, dig for the truth, to be a truth seeker, right? So my position is simple. Investigate everything, right? Investigate Tyler Robinson, the ballistics, the microphone, the crime scene, the truck, the alleged messages, Charlie's changing position on Israel before he died, Erica Kirk, Israel, Mossad, CIA, Netanyahu. Investigate who funded the debate. Investigate everything, right? Because if all of these allegations are wrong, then a legitimate investigation should be able to demonstrate that, right? But if they're right, then the public deserves to know. And I'm not asking people to blindly believe Candace Owens. I'm asking people not to blindly believe the government either. And that's ultimately why I believe the people lost in this debate. Instead of giving the public a serious examination of the evidence surrounding Charlie Kirk's death, we got a chaotic, free-form debate that, in my opinion, failed to expose the truth. Candace may not have every answer, but I believe she's asking questions that need to be answered, right? So, and until those questions are answered with real evidence, I don't believe the public should simply accept the story we've been given and shut up about it, right? So, unfortunately, my videos aren't playing, like the sound isn't playing. Let me give it one more try. Let me see if there's some volume. If not, we're just gonna skip these videos. I feel like I did a good job explaining how the debate went. You can always just go. It's on the internet. It's everywhere. Go and watch the debate yourself and come up with your own conclusions. How the debate went. You can always just go. It's on the internet. It's everywhere. Go and watch the debate yourself and come up with your own conclusions. How the debate went. You can always just go. Okay, we're getting a feedback loop. Hold on. We're going to see if we can get some volume on this and see if it's playing sound. We're going to see if we can get some volume on this. Yeah. Yeah, my volume isn't playing. So it's all good. We're not going to play any of these videos. It's all good. Go and on the internet, they're everywhere. People pretty much reading into the debate. And yeah, it's all over. So with that being said, that is what we have to say about the debate between the Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson debate. That's what, on Charlie Kirk's death. As more information comes out, of course, I'll be here to cover it for you, right? Because that's what we do. But moving on to our next topic, folks. This one is a bit sickening, all right? I won't lie. This one kind of crazy. I titled it "Men Are Sick, Women Are Sicker." And let me explain myself, all right? So men are sick, women are sicker. Hybristophilia and the Lindsay Clancy case. All right, so recently, a lady named Lindsay Clancy killed her kids, right? And the internet, to my belief, well, not really. Nothing really shocks me anymore, but they're supporting her, right? Women are, coming out of the woodworks, and pledging their support for this woman who killed her children. And that is, very disturbing to me, right? Because women are supposed to be the ones who raise the kids, the ones who, are supposed to give their lives to raise their kids, right? But that's not what they want to do these days. That's, if they have a kid, they feel as though it's their right to eliminate that kid if they want, right? Say they get into a fight with the father of the kid and they no longer like the father of the kid, they'll easily kill the kid and kill themselves, or they'll abort the kid, right? They'll have second thoughts, right? Like, I thought my life should have been better. I don't like my life. I'm no longer the center of attention. I'm going to kill the kid. Or it doesn't, whatever they think in their sick heads, we'll dig into it a little bit. Let's pull some stuff up. Right? But before we get into the Lindsay Clancy case, I want to get a little bit into men are sick, women are sicker. Hybristophilia. And what is hybristophilia? Well, hybristophilia is a term for being sexually or romantically attracted to someone because of or despite their criminal or violent behavior, right? You see it discussed, especially in cases involving people who become attracted to murderers, serial killers, and other notorious criminals. Some women are drawn to these men for different psychological or emotional reasons, such as the perceived danger, power, notoriety, or the belief they can, quote, save or change the person, right? Sick individuals, right? I don't know if it's more sick to be a murderer or to be in love with the murderer because they murdered someone, right? But it would be inaccurate to say that women in general are all hybristophilic, right? Not all women, but it's mostly women, right? Not all women, but most times it is. Right? I don't hear of any cases of men, going after women simply based on the fact that they are criminals or have, are savages or murderers, right? So there was a man named Chris Watts who murdered his wife and his two daughters. And he has since found a new wife. What do you know? 8 years after savagely murdering his wife and children, he's getting married again, right? And the fact that they let prisoners get married, or even people like who have done heinous crimes like this, I don't think they should even be allowed to communicate with humans ever again, right? We should cut off their ability to communicate with the outside world. I don't know why they get that. I feel like that's a freedom. That's a right as a human to be able to, talk to the outside world. I don't believe these prisoners, especially a dude like this who killed his family, he gets another wife, and this woman thinks that she's gonna be any different, or he's not gonna kill her, or he's gonna change for you, right? But either way, Lindsay Henderson, age 39, has had over 20 visits to Chris Watts in the past 15 months, with each contact lasting up to 3 hours. All right, so here's a picture of Chris Watts and his family that he murdered. I believe I think he either stabbed or shot his wife in their home, and then he killed his kids, and then he tried to get rid of their bodies in a oil tanker, right? And that's where they found their bodies. God rest their souls. And then here we have the sick hybristophilic Lindsay Henderson. So yeah, I mean, women love killers. They love bad boys, right? This just goes to show you they love bad boys. Don't ever be the nice guy, right? Because they'll leave you for a killer in a split second, right? And they'll have no problem doing it. All right. So abusive men will never be single. Let that sink in. Like this guy says. This person says, bro, this is not his fault. It was his ex-wife's fault. Recently, women have agreed that we can't blame the suspect of a crime anymore. It must always be the victim's fault. So I refuse to agree that this man is at fault. It was his ex-wife's fault and the government too. This guy has to be trolling. I think he's trolling. There's no way he's being serious. This person says, and I can't get a text back, right? This person says, women's intuition is an amazing thing, right? So yeah, they're sick, right? I don't know who's sicker, either the guy who killed his family or the one who fell in love with the guy who killed his family, right? Absolutely insane work. And we have, with that being said, now that we've explained what hybristophilia is, we can move on to the Lindsay Clancy case, right? Because I feel like these are somewhat tied into the same thing. It's all, having to do with women's mental health and the fact that they don't care about the children. Like, I mean, you can't, lump them all, obviously. You don't want to be too misogynist when making your points, because then the point won't be well received, right? But women have no problem killing their kids, right? They commit infanticide, which is the killing of children, at something like 3 to 4 times the rate, even higher, I believe, in some studies, than men do. And that's why it's also so important for men to not only vet a woman for years before deciding to have a kid with them, because you never know how they're gonna bring up, postpartum depression. That's something that's one of the excuses that they like to do. Oh, I had a kid and now I don't feel like myself anymore. It's so hard on my body. Bull crap, right? Men go through postpartum depression, and then the women are going to argue to death. You don't understand what it's like. You're not a woman, right? They love to fall back on that. But men also go through postpartum depression, right? And even after you have a kid, it's been studies that show that the estrogen, the testosterone in men drops significantly, right? After they have kids, because they have to, then they become, caretakers and things of that nature. So it's not just women's bodies who are affected after childbirth, right? So that whole postpartum depression shit is nonsense. It's void in my opinion, right? But that's the excuse they like to use after they have their kids and then they decide to kill them. And then recently, I believe in Massachusetts or in Vermont, one of those northern liberal states up there, they we talked about it last podcast. They can now allow termination of the child abortion up to like 9 months. Like right before the woman gives birth, she can just automatically just decide that she wants to kill the baby. And a lot of women, they say, well, what if the woman wants to have abortion because, it's going to kill her, right? There's going to be complications. It's a high risk pregnancy. Or what if, a man, sexually assaults the woman and gets her pregnant, right? And under those circumstances, I agree. That is a reasonable, reason to abort a baby. But that is not why these women are having abortions, right? 99.9% of the time, it's been documented that these women are having abortions due to choice, right? They're choosing simply because they don't want to have the kid. They get pregnant. All of a sudden they choose. They just don't want it, right? And I believe that's wrong. And, because what if you were aborted, right? What if your mom decided all of a sudden that she didn't want to have the kid? Then you wouldn't even be here listening to my beautiful, beautiful voice, watching my beautiful face talk these words, right now, right? So, it's just sick. These women are insanely sick, and I hate to clamp them all in the same category, but the more you look on the internet and you see the support, and which we're going to look at here in a little bit, you see the support that they have for these women that kill their own children. It's staggering, to say the least. But we have Lindsay Clancy. So Lindsay Clancy, she was a Massachusetts mother who is currently on trial for the January 2023 deaths of her 3 children, 5-year-old Kara, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan. Prosecutors allege that Clancy strangled all 3 children with exercise bands before jumping from a second-story window in an apartment. Suicide attempt, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. She has pleaded not guilty to the murder charges, so she did not simply plead guilty and now awaits for a trial. The major issue before the jury is whether she was legally responsible for her actions. Her defense, let me reword that. I think I said that wrong. She has pleaded not guilty to the murder charges, so she did not simply plead guilty. Okay, so I read that right. Okay, so she pled not guilty apparently, right? So her defense argues that she was suffering from severe postpartum psychosis, and other mental health problems that made her unable to appreciate the wrongfulness of what she was doing, right? The woman always has an easy out. But what if Chris Watts, the guy we just talked about, who killed his wife and his kids, he didn't have a postpartum excuse, right? Where's his excuse? Where's his out, right? So the woman, she gets an excuse when she commits a heinous crime. She decides that she chose the wrong person to have a kid with, so she must kill the kids, or she no longer likes her body, or she's not the center of attention anymore, so she'll kill the kids, or she found another man, a lover, so she'll kill the kids, and because that man doesn't want a woman with children, for whatever the reason is, that man, he doesn't get that outing, right? So she's claiming mental health problems that made her unable to appreciate the wrongfulness of what she was doing. While prosecutors argue that she planned the killings and understood what she was doing, the case has generated enormous controversy online, including significant support for Clancy from people who believe she was failed by the mental health system. The support and sympathy I've seen for this is disturbing, right? And it contributes to a broader point that women are willing to kill their own children and then attempt to explain or excuse it through circumstances such as postpartum mental illness. I also see abortion as part of what I consider a troubling contradiction in how society discusses the value of children, right? Fellas, be careful who you're out here impregnating, because they always feel they have the right to kill your child, right? And that's why fathers do so much better. Single fathers do so much better at raising children, statistically, right? I remember growing up with my father. After my parents got divorced, I lived with my dad from my freshman year in high school up until I was injured my junior year. And I would tell you that those 3 years were some of the best 3 years I think I've ever had in my entire life, right? First year, my freshman year, we had an apartment. I had, the best time. We would train, we would work out, we'd get up, we'd work out, we'd go to the gym every day. Our house was spotless. We had a balcony in our apartment overlooking a lake. We would chill, watch football, eat good, bachelor life. And then we eventually ended up moving into a house, in which was just another bachelor pad, chill, we'd work out, I was training. That's when I was in the best shape of my life, strong. I was winning weightlifting competitions. I was a national track athlete. So I was locked in life, making progress up until the point where obviously I got injured playing football. Freak accident. Spinal cord injuries happen. You never know what's going to happen to you, but it did happen to me. I'm in a wheelchair now, recovering from a spinal cord injury. But my life is still good. I still have that discipline instilled in me from when I was living with my father, that discipline will carry on with me forever. And I'm forever grateful for how he raised me, the discipline that he instilled in me. Right. And I'll carry that on in the next legacy, and hopefully so on and so forth. But either way, getting to the broader point, women feel as though they can kill your kids, right? And then they'll get support for it, right? This woman, Lindsay Clancy, admitted to strangling her 3 babies. So I don't know if she admitted. I think she did admit. I think I said earlier that she said that she was. She argued that she didn't plead not guilty. She just pled that her defense argues that she's unfit basically to stand trial, basically, that she's mentally insane, right? She's pleading insanity, right? Easy out, right? And I think they should bury her under the jail. Death penalty, if she's found guilty, death penalty, if you ask me, or lock her up for life, either or. Because that's what they would do to a man. Let's be honest. If she was a man, or even if she was a woman but was black or was Indian or Mexican, y'all think she really would have a group of liberal white women, middle-aged teachers? These are your teachers. These are your teachers' aides. These are your nurses. Your average everyday women that think that this type of behavior is acceptable. Very scary stuff. This woman raised, and she admitted to strangling her 3 babies. And then you had people on the internet claiming that it was the husband, right? Bringing up all these crazy alternative motives and conspiracies. Even though she admitted to doing it, it's sickening, right? It's really sickening that your everyday woman would support this. And so, fellas, be careful who you're out here impregnating. So yeah, this woman raised over $1 million on GoFundMe. At this point, GoFundMe is one of the worst things that ever happened to society, other than the internet, right? Because the fact that GoFundMe allows this to happen, she should not be able to raise no money. She shouldn't get no type of support. $1 million, over $1 million, thousands of donations. And you guys can't hear the volume, I believe, but we're going to play it anyway. And we'll just talk it. So here they are, all coming together.
An astounding show of support today for Lindsay Clancy. Hundreds of women, all dressed in pink, cheered the accused mom as she arrived in a police caravan for her murder trial. Supporters ran across the field to greet Lindsay. Some came with their babies.
You got dudes, kids. You know, they have their kids in strollers. Scary stuff. Nothing but I see nothing but older white ladies and some dudes, right, supporting this. Very scary stuff. But you have women, all type of women online supporting this. Of all races, you know, stating that they don't know what it's like to go through postpartum. If that's the case, you know, cool. You go through postpartum. Raise money for individuals going through postpartum. Support that, right? But don't support a damn murderer, right? If it was really for postpartum, you would be raising money for kids, not raising money in celebration of this sick individual, right? I saw something online. Someone said, I think I deleted it, but he said, you know, if it was really for support of mental health, then that would have been the main case. But instead, they're in support of this chick who killed her 3 young children, right? So I got a cat outside my window. The cats love my neighborhood. I put out water for the cats, honestly. I got two pretty cats in my neighborhood. She's watching me right now, watching me podcast. Either way, look at all this support. Look at all these people.
They held up heart hands during a silent rally for the mom who strangled her.
Look at her. She's in a wheelchair now, and they think that she's innocent. They really think that this chick, like, she tried to kill herself, obviously. Why would you?
The young children then jumped from the second floor window, leaving her paralyzed for life.
It's a buzz around here, guys.
Fox News legal analyst Charlie Painter, a former prosecutor, actually wore pink in her live report as she spoke to Lindsay.
This reporter even wore pink in her live report, right? So, you know, it's like you can't.
His defense attorney, who was greeted with cheers.
Behind closed doors, they've all been indoctrinated by the internet and, you know, feminist propaganda. You know, they're so entitled. You know, I'm not trying to like red pill rage here. I'm just stating what I'm seeing clearly. You know, and how crazy this is to me. But we'll keep going.
Hey guys, what do you think of the support for Lindsay Clancy out here?
I have no words.
No.
What do you think? She said, what do you think for the support of Lindsay Clancy? This guy says, I have no words.
Words?
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It echoes last year's Free Karen Reed campaign. Those supporters also wore pink. She was acquitted of murdering her cop boyfriend.
Oh my goodness. So the same type of rally happened last year in Massachusetts, where she was acquitted of murdering her boyfriend. They all wore pink, and so basically, you know, they think if you're a white lady, you can't do no harm. I saw this as well. Candace Owens says Lindsay Clancy, the woman who murdered her 3 children, is obviously not guilty. Yeah, see, I had a little bit of respect for Candace Owens. Thought she was intelligent, and at this point, it kind of just seems like she's just rage baiting the internet for clicks and views. She's view botting, you know, because we know her audience is mostly, you know, wives and probably like housewives, moms, right? That's her type of audience community she has, and so she just kind of, you know, grifts to that audience, right? And what they're gonna be in support of. And she says she's obviously not guilty. I don't know how you can say obviously not guilty. I thought Candace Owens was was smart until I saw this, and I was like, oh, she's just another one of them, just another shill. You know, you can't believe any of the words, anything that these women, that these views that they have, because they're not grounded in rationality. They're it's all grounded in emotion, right? So yeah, you can't hear it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But this guy says repeal the 19th, like not even joking anymore. Well, that's never gonna happen. That's there's no point of even at this point. That's definitely never gonna happen. Feminism has taken over to the extreme. The pendulum has swung, right? And then it makes me think, like, imagine if Kamala Harris would have won president, right? Obviously, Donald Trump isn't the best. He's controlled as well. He's controlled operation. I feel like he does have some stands, though. I don't completely hate Trump, but I'm not the biggest fan, right? I think a lot of things he does and says is divisive and not good for our country. But although he did, I will say, he did rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I think that's probably the best thing Trump has done as a president, right? But imagine if Kamala Harris would have won, how outrageous feminism would have gone. Like, it would have been what we have now, which is the worst it's ever been. Take that, inject it with steroids, right? Feed it 10 pounds of creatine, and throw some gasoline on it and light it on fire. That's what feminism would have been if Kamala Harris would have won. So, although Trump, not the best, not the biggest fan, he definitely mitigated a lot of that woke mind virus that our country was stuck in for a bit there, and it would have gotten a lot worse if Kamala would have won. I guarantee you. So, we'll see what goes on. We'll see who the next candidate president is. Obviously, all of them are controlled. You can't trust any president or politician at this point. I learned that a long time ago. It doesn't really matter who's running, but at least, just the idea of it being a strong political figure can change the positions and the minds and the way that society runs and is operated, and how people behave, right? So this person says Nick Fuentes is the most vindicated man of our time. Okay, I don't know what he means by that. Has something to do with I think him and Candace don't like each other, perhaps. So maybe Nick said something about Candace. I don't know. I'm not completely in the Nick Fuentes lore. You have to ask Nico about that. This person says, by that logic, drunk drivers that kill people are not liable. The alcohol companies are. Right. This person says, so now we're getting exonerate now we're going to exonerate. These people cannot, they have no grasp of the English language. So now we're going to exonerate every single mass shooter in the U.S. because most of them were on SSRIs. So yeah, I don't even know if I read the list. This is the list right here of SSRIs that Lindsay Clancy was on, right? The woman who killed her children, right? So she was prescribed Zoloft by, and these are all women doctors, it looks like. Let me see. Most of these are all women doctors. These are all SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? Prescribed to you when you are diagnosed with, depression or mental health disorders, right? In order to, keep your serotonin higher, to keep you from, falling into depression, which, depression is only a state, one state, right? It's one thing I did learn from Andrew Tate is that depression isn't real, right? Despite all the heinous crimes and things that he has alleged against him right now, I believe, that was one of the coldest lines he ever said was depression is not real, right? If you have depression, go do some push-ups or go accomplish something, right? So these women, they have nothing going on in life, right? They start to realize that, that their only goal is to be here and raise the children, right? And to me, that is the most beautiful thing a woman can do, is see her legacy, is to be a grandmother and to be in a room full of your legacy and have passed on your seed and to have raised those kids. But these women these days, that's not what they want, right? They want to be out partying, getting dug out by Chad and Tyrone, right? And their morals are off, right? It's a godless country, godless world. And so this chick was prescribed all type of SSRIs, Zoloft, Ativan, Benadryl, Ativan. These are all separate occasions. Now, Buspirone for anxiety, Ativan, Buspirone, more Trazodone, Prozac, Ambien, Remeron, Klonopin, Seroquel, Valium, right? And you'll be surprised how many women out there are walking around on SSRIs, right? Especially, white women, but women in general are heavily dosed on SSRIs on a daily, like the average woman. I would say, I believe the number is anywhere from like 20 to 35, roughly, of women are on some type of SSRIs. She's on Valium, Seroquel, Valium, Lamicidal, Lamisitol, Valium, Seroquel. These are all from a lot of these from different doctors at different times. Look at all these, the list goes on, right? Trazodone, Valium, like nasty work. So here we have some crime scene photos from, and also folks, this is going to be our last topic because this is going to be our longest podcast to date. I think it's 2 hours. We're at the 2 hour, 30-minute mark. Right. So your browser has lost connection to your screen share audio. Try sharing your screen again, restart your browser. If this continues to, okay. So folks, that's why I was having, screen share audio issues. There's a problem with StreamYard, so that's why. So it had nothing to do with me. It was just StreamYard failed, but it's all good. We still made it a good pod. So, like I said, though, we just hit the 2 hour, 30-minute mark. We're going to continue and finish up this last topic. I wanted to talk about Modern Warfare 4 beta is now live and some GTA 6 leaks. And what you should know about that, but we'll probably get onto that. I'll probably end up doing another podcast this Friday. Hopefully, we'll see how much topics I have, because there's a lot more stuff I want to talk about. But this, like I said, I'm probably gonna have to get off of here soon. I got some stuff to do. But anyways, continuing on with this, we got the crime scene photos. And let me share the screen. One second, folks. Let me pull that up. Let me delete these old tabs and pull up the crime scene photos from the Lindsay Clancy case. Right, very disturbing stuff. Make sure I got the right. Nope, wrong screen. I think it's this one. Yeah. I do it live, folks. We do it live. All right. So Here are the crime scene photos from the Lindsay Clancy case you haven't seen yet, right? These were photographs from the case, offer a disturbing look into her Duxbury, Massachusetts home, where prosecutors say Clancy killed her 3 children on January 24th, 2023. The victims were 5, 3, and 8 months old. Investigators documented the basement and other areas of the home as part of an extensive investigation, while jurors in the ongoing trial were later permitted, right? So to visit the former family residence to better understand the physical setting described in testimony. All right, so here is what seems to be like, like the basement type area of the apartment. I guess this is where she tried to jump out the window. I don't know what this is right here. That is like, it looks like blood. I don't know what that's from particularly. But here's some evidence. It looks like there's blood on the ground. So this is very gruesome and graphic stuff that we're looking at, right? Like, to be able to, I mean, that's a personal killing. To be able to like strangle your kids separately, all 3 of them, right? That's not just a murder. That's a premeditated crime. Like, that's just absolutely heinous in every regard. It's here showing her kids food down the stairs. I'm not sure if that's blood or what we're looking at exactly. It doesn't say, but I'm guessing this is her bedroom, or yeah, maybe the window she jumped out of. Looks like blood. Yeah, blood here on the ground. I'm not sure if she tried to like stab herself or shoot herself, or where this blood's coming from, or maybe the kids. Maybe she like strangled the kids and they started bleeding. But this is very disturbing stuff, like, to think about. Here is the resistance band that she used. I guess she just wrapped it around them, around their necks, and then yeah, it's hard to think about almost. More blood on the floor. Like, what a sick individual. And then they want to claim that it was the husband, right? That's what they're saying on the internet, the feminists in support of her. You got, and that's just a blanket term I'm using, feminist, but I don't really know what to say about these women that sick demons, really demons. Like, look at her. This is one of the people that you can't hear it, right? The audio isn't working.
Have we actually?
But pretty much she's explaining how crazy it is that these women are going on the internet, recording themselves, screaming at the camera and saying, in support of Lindsay Clancy, So here is more fans show up to support, dressed in pink to support the killer. All right. Just a bunch of, none of these women are attractive, just older grunts, leftovers, no attractive women are there supporting her. I mean, just a bunch of old, washed up, women that have hit the wall, and have nothing better to do with their time. They found an opportunity to protest about something. And they took their opportunity, right? So yeah, this person in the comment says, man, the Bible doesn't lie when it says Isaiah 5:20, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Yeah, the Bible, whether you believe it or not, I don't call myself the most religious person, but I do believe in God. I believe he's real, and I believe he has a purpose for me. And I believe the Bible has a lot of real things, although, allegedly been, edited and, it's man-made, all that. But I believe the word of God is in there. believe Jesus was real, died for our sins. And when the Bible talks about these things, you know, in times, you know, those who see will see, you know, evil as good and good as evil. That's what we're experiencing, right? I'm not saying this is the end times, but I do know that it prophesizes and, you know, foreshadows a lot of the things that we are seeing now. And this is one of them for sure. It's right here in front of our eyes. First, it says women can do what they want and blame it on hormones, postpartum, and menopause. Yep. Bingo. The accountability of women will forever be an issue, right? Accountability to women is like kryptonite. You know, it burns taking accountability for them. This person says, my question is, how does the children of all these women who is there, how do these kids feel right now, seeing their mother out there, knowing that this could possibly happen to them in the future? I'm just asking. This person says, reverse role, the man who would get jailed by Monday, then get the chair by Thursday night, right after the smackdown. All right. There's always someone in the comments that speaks. I don't know what type of English that is, but so here's more women on the internet in support of Lindsay Clancy saying, you know, showing their support, saying, you know, we stand with you, Lindsay. Postpartum rage got the best of me today. Look at this. Insane work. How scary is that? Look at the kid crying, and then her mom's just you know, just there. Like, she's supposed to be raising the kid. She's supposed to be the kid's emotional person to lean on, but no, you can't even lean on your mom, the one who's supposed to raise you, who's supposed to be your emotional support. She's out there claiming that she's having emotional issues. Like, what type of parent? Women are the worst parents, bro. Like, honestly, you know, as a man, you need to be the physical support, you need to be the financial support, and you need to be the emotional support, right? You need to be all three, right? I throw my ice in my hot tub. Look at them going crazy on the internet. You know, it's absolutely crazy. Imagine being the husband to these women, right? And then seeing them and leaving your kid with them on a daily basis, right? Not knowing what the hell they might decide to do, whether they decide that today's the day that their postpartum psychosis gets the best of them and they kill the kid and themselves or whatever. You know, and women typically don't kill themselves, right? Even if they attempt it, like as we've seen with this Lindsay chick, they're never successful, right? They're not like men. If a man is going to kill himself, it's going to get done, right? He's going to shoot himself or hang himself. That's how women, that's how men end up killing themselves. Women, you know, they'll try to take a bunch of drugs, they jump out a window, do stupid shit, but it doesn't even accomplish the job. Like, they're too scary to even kill themselves, right? Like, they can't even do that, right? You know, so this psychologist testified that Lindsay Clancy told her kids to go to bed, to go to God while strangling them. Wow, that sends chills up my spine. And this is real life. This ain't like a movie, right? It's different when you see this in like a movie. It's like, okay, oh, that was just acting. Like, no, this is real life. How women are, you know, led to believe that they're allowed to act, right? And this is completely okay and acceptable to them. And then they try to blame it on him as well, tracking Patrick Clancy's movements the nights of the murders. So at 5:15, he left the house to go to CVS, pick up dinner, and for his family, you know, provide for his family. Lindsay texts Patrick to pick up Pedialax. All All right. 5:33. Patrick calls Lindsay to tell her CVS doesn't have that medication. She didn't answer. However, she shortly called back and told him the generic brand of the medication was fine. Transcripts from court. Prosecutor Jennifer Sprague. Can you describe the phone call for us? Patrick, the husband, he says, I told her there was a generic brand. Is that okay? And she said, yeah, that's fine. Lindsay, wait, JS, demeanor during the call. Oh, so the prosecutor says demeanor during the call. Patrick says she was quiet, seemed busy. Yeah, busy strangling your kids. He said, I remember thinking maybe she was giving a bath. The prosecutor. So she sounded like she was in the middle of something. Patrick, yes. Yeah, in the middle of strangling and jumping out of a window. The prosecutor. She didn't have trouble remembering why you were at CVS or what you were looking for. He said, correct. Yeah, so she's got mental issues, but she can perfectly have a conversation. Meanwhile, in the middle of offing her offspring. At 5:54, Patrick leaves CVS and begins driving to the restaurant 3V. He testified that it took him about 10 minutes driving on Route 3 to arrive at the restaurant. 5:54 p.m., Patrick is seen on surveillance at 3V looking at their dinner order. Patrick testified that imagine the hurt and the pain to come, to go out thinking you're doing the right thing, providing for your family, gonna come home to your kids, and then you come home and your kids are freaking strangled, right? And your wife outside of a window on the ground, paralyzed because she's having a psychosis breakdown episode, right? Then Patrick testified that it took him 10 minutes to arrive home from 3V. He called out to Lindsay and the three kids, but no one answered. At 6:09 p.m., after shouting down to the basement and not hearing anyone, Patrick called Lindsay. There was no answer. Shortly after arriving home, and the crazy thing on the internet, they're trying to blame this dude, right? Of all things. I think that's what Patrick, what's her name? Candace Owens was saying. Idiot. PC. So Patrick, my wife tried to commit suicide. Stay awake, stay awake. She jumped out the window. He was talking to 911. Patrick, where are the kids, Lindsay? Dispatcher says not to move her. Patrick, look at me. Open your eyes. It's not really bleeding. It's just an open wound. Did you fall out of the window, Linz? Did you fall? Is there something on your neck, Lindsay? So I guess she's not answering though. Patrick, I need you guys down here now. He's talking to the operator. Peace, Patrick, she killed the kids. Wow. Derricksburg police officer Stephen Hall testified that he received the dispatch call and went to Clancy's house. When first responders arrived, they found severely injured Lindsay and the couple's three children, Cora, Dawson, and Kaylin, unresponsive in their basement. So this person says, a woman suffering from postpartum depression who has reported hearing voices posted online that she cannot stand her baby and feels an urge to harm the child, has seen psychiatrists multiple times, is not taking her medication. In the comments, it was the husband. Yeah, right. So we have a little bit more on this before we end here. After killing her kids, Lindsay Clancy told Chaplin, I am so glad my children are safe from the hospital bed. All right. So more sick delusional stuff. And it's not just the Lindsay Clancy case. Look, we have more cases. This mother cuts the throat of her three kids, then sends the dad a video, says goodbye, say goodbye to your kids. Wow. And then she's took it under custody here. So it's not her. All of these women think they're, since they gave, and they think when they have the kids, they think it's their kids, right? They, it's their kids now. They gave birth to it, even though it's like a man has nothing to do with the birth, right? Like they have, like they're just sperm donors. It's like they just think they magically grew the babies in their stomach without a man. Like I can't. This 22-year-old cheerleader pleads guilty to killing her newborn and stuffing it inside a trash bag. Right? So the cases go on. Another one. Mother blames postpartum psychosis after killing her 3-year-old son and tries to kill her 2-year-old. All right. So we're not even going to dig deep into that. Pretty much we covered what we need to cover regarding this situation. You should get the point at this point that these women are sick, guys. Be careful who you're having kids with. And yeah, do your best out here to, vet and pick out the right women. It's hard. Feminism has taken over. These women are entitled, and so many other things. So with that being said, folks, that's been today's episode. As always, the StormCast is everywhere you find podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube. Drop a 5-star review on Spotify and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Rumble. All links are down in the description. Support the show on Patreon. Link in the description. All right. Support us on there, $5 a month. We're dropping new content on there, by the way. So drop your thoughts on today's episodes, by the way, about the topics. Were they good or bad? Happy or sad? I know today's episode was a little bit more of a, we talked a lot about some dark things going on around the world, but that's sometimes it's like that. We try to highlight some positive things as well sometimes, but in a dark world, there's a lot of dark news. So, but I want to hear from you on today's topics. And if you want me to touch on something else, perhaps I'm missing something, or I missed a detail or a story that you find interesting that I should cover, let me know. Either way, thank you for tuning in, and stay locked in for the next episode. Stay beautiful, stay blessed. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.